Okay, today we're going to talk about the impact of subsidies and taxes on the market. So, what will change in the market if the government taxes products or services, or in fact subsidises them, gives the supplier more money for every product and service they produce. So first of all, we're going to look at tax increases on products and services. A tax increase on a product, for example, books, maybe IVA, or VAT in English, goes up from 15 to 20%. Obviously, this increases the price, will reduce demand and supply. So that could be IVA. We also have excise duties, which we pay on petrol and on dangerous goods like cigarettes and alcohol, which reduces the supply. I'll show you the graph changes. In the diagram. So here we've got price and quantity supplied and demanded. This is the supply curve, okay? It's proportional to the price. Goes up as the price goes up. This is the demand curve. It goes down as the price goes down. It's inverted. It has an inverted relationship to the price. Goes down as the price goes up. Now, the optimum price is here. If there's a tax, the supply moves in this direction, above the original supply curve. Here, we've got an increase in price. Here, a reduction in quantity supplied and demanded. Okay? So that's the visual graphic representation. Go back to the PowerPoint. If we think about the subsidies in an industry, subsidies are often used in farming because a country cannot depend on its food or on foreign producers for its food. It would be dangerous. So it wants to encourage farming. It would subsidise farming, or maybe innovative but risky goods and services where industry are not prepared. They're not prepared to invest the money. The government can subsidise and give companies money to encourage this activity. Another example would be solar panels and wind turbines for the environment, to encourage that activity. Maybe the energy produced by solar panels is more expensive, but it doesn't damage the environment. So, subsidies would reduce the price and increase demand and supply. Another use for subsidies would be to protect us from foreign competition. If a foreign company or foreign country has very big, powerful, competitive industry, car industry for example, and ours is not so competitive because it's smaller, maybe we can protect it with subsidies by giving money to the producer so they can maintain their market share and stop the foreign companies taking all the business, and then protect jobs, home jobs in the home market. So they can be used in that way. Social costs and benefits. When we think about the activity in a market, obviously it has an impact on the customers and on the suppliers, on the businesses. But it also can have an impact, a consequence on those not involved in that economic activity. You can have what you call negative externalities. These are social costs, if you like. An activity, for example, oil production, can have an impact which is negative outside the industry. If there's an oil spill, fishermen will suffer, tourism will suffer, people that go to the beach and want to walk along the beach will suffer. Lots of people will suffer, not just those within the market, those involved in the activity. And that needs to be considered. Remember, the firms in the industry, they're just thinking of profit. You know, if they're polluting in the air or in rivers, that won't come into their calculation. They need to make profit to survive. But there can be these negative externalities. We're talking about how we approach them, how we deal with them, how we stop them, if you like. There can be also positive externalities. For example, firms which invest in technologies or for example, training, like for example, English lessons. Those people that are trained, maybe they leave that industry, they go to other markets, they use those lessons in different ways. They can speak English with foreigners in other contexts, not just their work. So it will have an impact generally in the economy. Another positive externality was when this pharmaceutical company, Roche, developed a device where people could be cured at home and didn't need to be in the hospital. Obviously, those beds in hospitals were available to other people. They were freed. So that had an external benefit. It was a positive externality. Another example, medicine improvements in techniques for our health can reduce sick leave in companies, in all through the economy and all through the public services, teachers or other public officials. Maybe they don't stay at home all through. So the medicine improvements don't just affect those within the industry, because the services can be provided by people who are not sick. They can continue to work and provide services. So when we consider if the resources are being used economically or uneconomically, we need to consider these externalities. We need to consider if the social costs, which are the negative externalities, exceed the social benefits, which are the positive externalities. Is society worse off or better off? And it's not always obvious in the market. If there are too many negative externalities, we get market failure. So the market may look like it's working really well, they're making a lot of profit, these companies, but externally the society is suffering, so it's failed. And then you can have government intervention. The government can do something to rebalance the market, to make it more economic. So if we put this in another way of thinking, the private companies think about what to produce, how to produce, and who to produce for. for their private interest, they consider their private costs and benefits. The government need to consider the external costs and benefits. And then they can react in several ways. They can change laws and regulations. For example, if lorry drivers are very dangerous if they work more than 6 hours, if they drive more than 6 hours, they can make it legal to have a break or not work more than 8 hours. 8 hours in a day is enough. And they can make that law. They can make laws for pollution. In cars now, there's lots of European regulations which, you need to have this stop-go mechanism in the car. When you stop, the engine turns off. Or, for example, the pollution from the car cannot be above a certain limit. Suppliers need to put alarms on seat belts if they're not connected, if they're not done up, etc., etc. There's lots of laws and regulations to protect us from the external negatives that a market can produce. Or you can have taxation. For example, here I've put cigarettes. Cigarettes, if people smoke, they can end up in hospitals. That costs lots of money. Cancer costs lots of money. People can't work. They take a lot of resources. Just from an economic point of view, smoking is very negative, even if the industry is making lots of money. So governments put taxes on cigarettes to discourage this and to pay for the negative externalities. Or they can give subsidies. An example I gave before is lessons. In Turin, the region pays 80% of English lessons, whereas the company who buys these services only pays 20% of the cost. So they're encouraging this activity because it's not just good for that company, it's good for the region as a whole. Okay.